Hey everyone, this is Flammy. Welcome back. It's been a while since I uploaded. I am here once again with Jorge Yao. We are doing what is probably going to be our final interview on Clash of Clans. Jorge, if you guys did not follow our previous interviews, has retired from being the #1 player. He's currently hanging out around 3,300 trophies, just playing out there a little more casual than before. He is going to be doing something a little different in this interview. We're not going to be doing more question and answer. Well, there's some questions at the end from you guys that you've submitted, but in the meantime, Jorge sort of has his story, sort of revealing a lot more than he has before about some of the sort of behind-the-scenes stuff that you might not know about. Actually, almost no one knows about. So, Jorge, welcome back. Glad to have you once again.
Thank you, Flammy. Glad to be back. So I wanted to start off by saying that this whole Clash experience has been truly amazing. And I count my blessings each and every day for all the continuous support from the Clash community. You guys have been awesome. This interview is meant to give you guys a parting gift as a way of saying thank you, basically. I want to also give special thanks to my interviewer, you, Flammy, who has followed me from the start of my journey. You're welcome. Who has followed me from the start of my journey from the outside looking in. All of these interviews have been a lot of fun, and I wish you the best, as I know you'll continue to do great things, both in your personal life and through your continuous involvement in the Clash community.
Thank you very much. I certainly hope to.
No problem. So now, for the part you Clashers have been eagerly waiting for, the backstory of my long journey. Before I begin, I know most of you are expecting me to reveal or expose specific accounts that I've played or helped play, but unfortunately, this interview is not intended to ruin anyone's image, in-game or out, so I'll not be exposing specific names, but rather give details regarding specific events and let you Clashers put the pieces together the way you guys see fit. Plus, it's a lot more fun to keep you Clashers speculating. I do, however, want to state that everything I'm about to discuss is factual and true, having multiple pieces of evidence to back my story. Okay, so down to business. Let's turn the clock back to the end of January, right after I broke the 4,000 trophy landmark and completed my first interview with you, Flammy. For quite some time, I was essentially competing against myself, seeing how long I could maintain the #1 rank, as there wasn't a single Clasher who was in contention. Then along came Vizia, someone who actually gave me a challenge. Also, all of you Clashers a really entertaining show. I'm sure many of you tracked our trophy counts at each day as we were racing neck and neck on our way up. Flammy, I think you even hyped the competition in one of our interviews, I think, which was kind of cool. Up until Vizia came along, I never had the need to keep pushing my trophies up since I was comfortable hovering around 4,000. But Vizia gave me a spark to see if I still had it, and you Clashers know the end result of that epic competition.
So, well, actually, if you guys don't know, if you weren't playing around that time, what ended up happening was Vizia started climbing up closer and closer to 4,000. It started looking like he might actually pass Jorge. So I'll give you a bit of background here. What ended up happening was Vizia chased Jorge up in the trophy count, and Jorge started rising himself to try to stay away and maintain the lead. And I can't remember exactly what trophy count it was at. Maybe you can fill this in, Jorge. But Vizia passed Jorge during one particular day, but by the end of the day, they had passed back and forth several times, and Jorge came out on top once again. So,
sorry to cut you off, but
no, go
I
ahead.
think he did pass me for, I think, around 6 hours it was, and then there was actually no trading back and forth.
Really?
I actually sped right by him right after that. So he passed me once, and then once I got home from work, I literally just gunned it because I didn't want him to pass me again. So he had a 6-hour span, I would say, at most, of being the #1 player. And then from then on, I sped right by him and kept going.
Pretty impressive stuff. And that would be his only time that he was in the lead, and after that he went inactive, is that right? Pretty quickly?
Yeah, pretty quickly. We were neck and neck all the way, I think, even past 4,100 trophies. So he was still pretty active until a little bit past 4,100, and I think he just stopped at that point.
But never got the lead back?
Never got the lead back. He only had it for that 6 hours on that one day.
Awesome. Well, thank you for clarifying that. Can you continue your story?
Yeah, sure. Back when I was saying, however, during that whole time I was competing against Vizia, the majority of the Clash community didn't realize that I was actually maintaining 5 of the top 10 players in the world, one of which was my own. I won't go into too much detail on the specific accounts I played, out of pure respect, but basically a few top players had to take a long hiatus from the game due to work-related reasons, so I took it upon myself to maintain those accounts as long as I could. Hence, the picture many of you have seen of the 5 simultaneous iPads searching for battles. It was a personal choice of mine because of how much respect I had for those guys, who were my mentors, and the love I had for my Clash family. By now, all of you know that all the top Clashers gem, and I understand Clashers who will discredit top players because we gem, but unfortunately, we live in a world where life isn't fair. I posed a question to you Clashers that if the top few thousand players gem, and that's probably an underestimation since there are thousands of players with max bases who only play defense, why is it that only a handful of Clashers have broken 4,000 trophies in the last 8 months? If the argument is money alone buys the rank. If all the top players gem, the monetary aspect is a complete wash since it's not a limiting factor. Yes, there is the argument that if every Clasher was given the same amount of gems, we would have a completely different player ranking, and I don't disagree with that statement. However, the strategies that we have developed, the time invested, the discipline involved, and the sacrifices we made cannot be bought by money, or with money. Those non-monetary aspects are truly what make a player succeed at the top level. So I'll leave the topic at that since it's a whole other story, and I'll leave it up to you Clashers to formulate your own opinions. However, my point is to express on behalf of all the top players that what we do isn't easy, and part of the purpose of this interview is to enlighten those who don't have the complete picture. I know Flammy was blown away back when he found out the inside story on top level Clashers way back in January. I'm sure Flammy can touch a little bit on that too.
So what I was so surprised to find was the time investment. I mean, like, I had a pretty good idea that the game very much was paying at the top levels, that I knew you had to pay to maintain a top level, but what I didn't realize was even what I consider even more valuable than, like, spending money and even significant dollars in the game was spending significant hours on the game. Hours and hours and hours. And not just playing the game, but just like waiting to find a match. And that's just like tedious. That's work. And right. That really blew me away because I had no impression that was actually the case before I talked with Jorge.
Right. So it's one of those things where you want to have an opinion, but you want to be fully informed. And the part of this interview is to kind of give everyone a little bit more light on, what we go through on a day-to-day basis as a top player. So Kamal actually wrote a great synopsis into the day-to-day life of being a top player in this personal Clash blog, which you guys can check out. But imagine planning your entire life around 12-hour shield times and dictating your vacations, work life, personal free time, and basically any outside enjoyment over a game. Sounds silly, right? But I'm sure many of you Clashers, top players or not, do all the aforementioned sacrifices too, but in varying degrees. During the SF Clash gathering, I actually met several wives and girlfriends of mid-level Clashers who were sick of the game and didn't understand why their husbands and boyfriends would literally take their iPads with them into the restroom and even into the shower to Clash. I'm sure many of you have done that too as well. Again, silly, but this game is fun, yet also extremely addictive due to the community aspect of the gameplay. Again, props to Supercell for making a hit game. Players who have learned from me, such as Kamal, MD Chef 1, Shrek, Tetwa, recently retired Papa Army, and Panda Russia, and any other top player using my strategies, all know the sacrifices they can make every day to maintain their ranks. Simply put, it's not money that buys the rank. It truly takes superior focus, discipline, and dedication to achieve what all of us have achieved. And because of all the top players who gem, and also any Clasher who has spent even a single dollar in this game, I know many of you have spent small amounts to get that ever so desired 5th builder height. Supercell is able to release killer updates on a monthly basis to keep this game free to play for the community while also maintaining the interest for current Clashers. Again, hats off to Supercell for the continuous improvements to the game. So transitioning back to the backstory, I was maintaining 5 to 7 accounts aside from Jorge Yao. As you all can imagine, it was grueling, time-consuming, and to be perfectly frank, costly. I wasn't born into money. My parents were first-generation immigrants from China, and I've worked hard both in school and in my professional life to earn every penny I own. Being a 25-year-old professional, I couldn't keep up with upgrading every account, especially as new updates rolled out. I tried my best, but having a financial background, I knew my budget and monetary limitations. Towards the end of March and flowing into the beginning of April, I was really struggling to keep up with even Jorge, let alone all the other accounts. I was even contemplating retiring because of the amount of stress I had in-game and in my personal and professional life. That's when a good friend of mine, MD Chef 1, introduced me to my Clash sponsor. I won't mention the name, and you will know why in a minute, but my sponsor was such a great and generous person, loving the game so much that he was willing to fund all the gems for my account, along with all the other accounts to alleviate the financial portion of my day-to-day stress. In return, I played my sponsor's account because he simply didn't have enough time each day to net a positive gain, since at that point, the gameplay advantage was heavily swayed towards offense, and no defense was safe from at least a 1-star loss, which to a top player meant a loss of 19 trophies. Now that's conservatively speaking. If a top player gets hit for 2 or 3 stars, they are looking at a loss of 38 or even 59 trophies, which equates to days of error-free gameplay. So to put this in perspective, a top player has to gain a minimum 19 trophies every session to even have a chance of netting a positive gain for the day before having to go on defense. Then the player has to do the same exact thing once their 12-hour shield runs out, and the cycle repeats itself. This was extremely tough since good battles were hard to find, and with the limited time my sponsor had, I thought it was a good gesture to return his generosity by increasing his cups. It was the least I could do. So let's turn the clock ahead 1 month into May. Again, a new update which clearly cost money for all the top players who gem, meaning more money to spend for my account, my sponsor's account, and the other accounts I was maintaining. The cost was too much for me to justify updating all those accounts, and I simply didn't want to maintain them anymore because it just wasn't the right thing to do for me and for my sponsor. So the other accounts slowly dropped, and I only maintained Jorge and my sponsor's account after that point. Luckily, the players who I've maintained their accounts for have recently returned back to the game and are now rocking it, so I wish them the best of luck. They're true pros. Many of the top players, along with other classers, have assumed that I have a second account, which is somewhat true, and I'm willing to fully disclose that information right now. Kitty Cat, her in-game name, is actually a real person who I work with in real life. Her name is Cat. I won't give her full name to protect her privacy, but she's originally from Chicago. She saw me addicted to playing Clash of Clans since January and decided to join in on the fun and started playing her own account, Kitty Cat. At first, she was just farming, but then like many top players, she got impatient and started gemming everything without knowing how to actually attack. So I taught her every facet of my drag attack strategy, and she actually became top 10 in the world in a matter of weeks. However, as soon as the 4th air defense came out, I think it was probably late April. Correct me if I'm wrong, Flammy. I think late April.
I think that's right. It's sort of hard to remember at this point.
So as soon as the 4th air defense came out, I switched to ground attack units, which is far more complex to master due to the large mixture of different troops and different spell combinations, as well as the crucial timing of how each spell and troop should be released. I tried teaching her, however, she just said it looked like pure chaos and decided she didn't even want to bother. I do give her credit, though, for trying. She had made it to the top 10 in the world and also top 3 in the U.S. local, which was more than enough for her satisfaction. So at that point, she handed her account over to me, and that's when I started having full control over it, which is towards the middle or end of May. I mainly used her account to donate troops to clanmates, but did take her account to top 10 again, basically just for fun, since playing Jorge was extremely boring at that point. Jorge was above 4,100 and I think approaching 4,200 trophies at that point, so it took on average 3 to 4 hours to find one battle with only one trophy. Boring as you all can imagine. So that's the story behind my quote-unquote second account. However, I do have a third account named George, spelled like the word George, Y, who is farming and currently at Town Hall 8, in case you guys were wondering. So back to my sponsorship. I maintain two top accounts, Jorge and my sponsors, and as each update was released, it only meant more money my sponsor had to shell out. The reason I kept going was mainly to prove a point to many clashers out there who thought I was cheating or using a jailbroken iPad to keep myself online 24 hours a day without having to go on defense. So as each update came out and Supercell rolled out additional preventative measures for the iMod hack, an example was implementing the 8-hour time limit rule. I don't know if many of you are aware of that rule. Flammy, I'm sure you can discuss a little bit about that too as well.
Sure. So it was an interesting choice on Supercell's part to prevent players from staying online constantly, namely aimed at preventing botting, which is an artificial way to keep yourself online. There are rumors of either a digital way, such as the iMod tool which Jorge mentioned, or rumors of people using mechanical tools to sort of move your iPad to keep your base online. Because of course, while you're online, you can't be attacked. Well, what this did was every 8 hours, it would kick you offline for a few minutes, making you vulnerable to attack, preventing people from maintaining their trophy count. There were certain top players at this point, which I'm not sure if Jorge wants to get into or not, who immediately after this update, they plummeted off of the leaderboards, proving that they were pretty clearly using this to maintain it. However, Jorge clearly was not one of them.
Right. And thank you for that. So yeah, I wanted to show the Clash community that I was indeed a legitimate player, and if all of you paid close attention, like Flammy said, once the 8-hour time limit rule update came out, the quote-unquote hackers were basically exposed as evidenced by their quick drop in trophies, while my trophies continued going up, eventually setting the record at 4,224, I believe, which I hope MD Shaft 1 will break soon. Congrats to him, by the way, on breaking 4,200 trophies. I think he's the only other person who has broken that landmark, and I'm sure he'll break my record or smash my record pretty soon. I'm rooting for you, buddy. So just to recap, I was contemplating retirement back in April, after the competition with Vizia, but kept going due to my generous sponsor and the personal need to prove a point to the Clash world. After I had proven my point and set the current record, I had nothing left to prove to myself and felt it was perfect time for me to step down after 6 months of maintaining the number 1 rank. With the exception of the 6 hour in that one day where Vizia, took the rank. But 6 months straight of maintaining the number 1 rank, allowing Kamal to rejoice in part of the glory as a new number 1 player. I was still sponsored during this time and playing my sponsor's account and felt that he had spent so much for the benefit of myself as well as the team that I owed it to him to maintain his account as long as I could. A few months rolled by and I finally realized that at the end of July was the right time for me to end the sponsorship. He and I both knew how time-consuming and hard it was for me to maintain the account day in and day out. So we reached a mutual agreement to give me my normal life back and end the sponsorship. So simply put it, I was basically burnt out from playing Clash of Clans at such a high level for such a long time. So as of August 1st, my sponsorship ended and his account was given back to him, and he is now maintaining it on his own. His cups did drop a little bit, however, he is no amateur by any means, and I'm sure he will get back up if he has the time to do so. Now, to address a question many of you Clashers have asked me since my last interview with Flammy, which was, would you consider dropping your cups down to 0, or as far down as possible, and see if you could take your account back to the top? My answer is a definitive no.
Oops, sorry.
Go for it.
I don't really have anything to say there. So we did talk about this before, and we certainly were talking about the possibility of doing so, which Jorge is going to get into now. Because perhaps you guys will be surprised that. Go right ahead.
Well, and my reason is because I had already done it on other accounts before the challenge was even proposed. So when Flammy proposed the challenge to me last interview, in the back of my mind, I was somewhat laughing because I I had already done it, which clearly none of you are aware of, and I don't think Flammy was even aware of.
I was not at that point in time.
Otherwise, you probably wouldn't have proposed the challenge.
Probably not.
Exactly.
So, not much of a challenge if you can already have done it before I even ask it, right?
Exactly. So, but again, I won't reveal the accounts, but I will say that I've taken more than just my own account to 4,000. I'll leave it up to you Clashers to speculate on which accounts, and so on and so forth. So that's basically my backstory, and I hope all of you enjoy the behind-the-scenes view of my Clash journey. And now I'll open it up to Flammy for some community questions that you Clashers have for me.
All right. Well, before I get into those questions, thank you very much, Jorge, for that very long, epic backstory. Definitely revealed a lot of details. Some of them I knew before now. Some of them I definitely did not. And sort of just open it up to a lot of different things that have happened before. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Now, I do have a couple questions here that some fans have submitted via Facebook and Twitter. You guys can, of course, interact with both of us on both Facebook and Twitter. Links for those will be in the description of this video and possibly annotated if I remember to get around to it. Now, first question from you guys is, what update has changed the game the most with regards to high-level players?
So one of the biggest, it's actually a small update. It wasn't anything you had to actually download from the App Store. Was the addition of the 4th air defense, as I mentioned in the backstory. So that completely changed my gameplay since I was basically strictly a dragon player. I was always an air player. Because the success rate was really high, error rate was really low. So I play risk adverse, so I really enjoyed playing drags. But as soon as the 4th air defense came out, the success rate went down significantly, and so I didn't really want to take the risk of using drag attack with a 4th air defense. So I actually switched to ground units as a result. So that was a huge change for me personally, because I literally had to perfect and learn a whole new strategy using ground units. And luckily, I was capable of mastering, using golems and so on and so forth. I don't know if golems were out at that point, maybe they weren't, but so yeah, using golems. But along with the 4th air defense, I would say the other two major changes would be, well, actually 3. On the defensive end, Inferno Towers are huge. That changed the game significantly, which was post-Golem, I believe. Golem came out first, I believe, and then Inferno afterwards.
They did,
right?
indeed.
So for a little while, the Golem attack strategy was great because, the expos, it took care of the expos while everything else just, wreaked havoc on the entire base. But as soon as the Inferno Tower came out, then you had to tweak the attacks a little bit differently, maybe an extra golem or 2 to kind of, basically just keep the Inferno Towers company while everything else does its damage. So that was two of the biggest things that changed, on the defensive end, the Inferno Towers, on the offensive end, the golems. And then recently, the witches are extremely nasty. They pack a serious punch. Now, right when the update came out, I was playing around with them, and it was ridiculously easy to 2 and 3 star bases left and right. Max bases, didn't matter what base it was. Literally, it was just guaranteed win. You didn't have to do anything. You could just drop troops, and you basically would get a 2 or 3 star. You would have one golem in the clan castle to basically take the brute force punches from all the defensive towers, and then you would unleash, the rest were witches, and you would have a few wall breakers to break through the first layer of walls, but essentially the witches would just do the rest of the work and wreak havoc. Accompanied by, 3 rage spells, sometimes 4, or the easiest one was 4 lightning spells, and what you would do is you use 2 lightning spells per mortar. So you would take out 2 mortars with 4 lightning spells. Since the mortars and the splash damage were the easiest way to kill, on the defensive end, to kill witches and all the little undead creatures that they spawn, taking 2 mortars out significantly increases your success rate on attack. So you see a lot of people using 4 lightnings, take out 2 mortars, and then use a rage, and it's almost a guaranteed 2 or 3 star.
Very cool. Thank you very much for the detail as well. On to the next question. What is your favorite part about playing Clash of Clans?
Ooh, good question. Favorite part of playing Clash of Clans? I would say the community. I know Supercell is, with every update, they are incorporating more and more community aspects to the gameplay, such as, sharing attack replays, which I thought is really cool to be able to, share with your friends and see kind of, how people attack, and, if you have pros in your clan, it would be great to see, how they attack and kind of mimic them. So I thought that aspect was pretty cool, and I'm sure Supercell is going to continue to add more community aspects to gameplay on a clan standpoint. So that's kind of one of my favorite things is seeing that kind of progression and evolution, but also developing the friendships in the game with the players that you're friends with. I'm sure a lot of Clashers out there create clans with their friends, co-workers, or just even random people. But you get to meet people all across the world, and you chat with them on other applications like Kick and WeChat, and it's just a great time. So I would say that's probably my favorite aspect of the game is the community.
I definitely have to agree, and it is absolutely huge to making the game really fun for myself, and why many players keep coming back is because of the community.
Certainly.
And last and final question from the fans here. How many matches were you finding per day on your way up to 4,000 trophies?
Ooh, that's a good question. Per day. So in a 24-hour session, I would be lucky to find 30 matches. So that equates to roughly a little bit more than 1 match per hour.
And when you say that, you're meaning you were basically online, like playing for 24 hours straight.
Correct. I was online playing 24 hours straight. And just a little preface, this was pre 8-hour time limit update, so this was when you were able to play as long as you wanted to, and basically whoever can stay online the longest and play the longest, had a better fighting chance. So when I was pulling those 24-hour, 48-hour sessions all the way up to 4,000, yeah, I would be lucky to find 30 matches in a 24-hour time frame.
Pretty awesome. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this next interview. Thank you very much once again for coming back, Jorge. Not sure if we're going to do any more Clash content, but you know what? I definitely want to stay in touch with you. Jorge and I have definitely developed a great relationship outside of both the interviews, and he's a great guy to play with, talk strategy with, just talk life with. I mean, it's been a lot of fun doing all these, so if I've never said it enough before, thank you so much, Jorge, for doing these with me. It's been a blast, and I hope you've had a good time as well.
Oh no, and likewise, it's special thanks to you for basically following me through this whole journey since January, doing all these interviews. So special thanks to you too as well. I know these interviews and the editing takes a long time and takes a lot of your work, so and effort. So I do appreciate your time in doing these with me, and I'm sure we'll be working on things down the road.
Definitely been my pleasure. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like I said at the beginning, sorry for not uploading lately. Been busy. I'll talk about it later probably. But yeah, not at this point in time. Now, to wrap it up guys, there is a link to Jorge's Facebook and Twitter in the description of this video. If you guys want to follow and hear more about his gaming shenanigans, go right ahead and follow those. Beyond that guys, thank you very much for watching. Have a great day, and Clash on.